Good morning. It's Tuesday, September 3rd. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning here in South Carolina. Not sure what Hurricane Dorian is going to do. I haven't checked this morning to see what Dorian is up to. So I'm hoping that Dorian is going to move more to the east and not even affect us. But it's just a beautiful day here and I'm so thankful for it. I spent the weekend in Kentucky, a quick weekend. We didn't get home till Friday evening and we left Sunday morning. But our annual family reunion was this weekend. I really enjoyed it. We didn't have a big crowd, but the ones we had, we just sit around the table or on the front porch and we reminisced and we had a great time. It was just wonderful. I loved it. I love being with my family and being able to talk through a lot of things. We all share either our grandparents or our great-grandparents, and it was just a wonderful time. Nick, unfortunately, spent the whole weekend in Barry's building, our brother-in-law's building, fixing his truck. He spent 15 hours on Saturday fixing his truck, and of course we had to come home early on Sunday because our son Johnny had ACL surgery, and we had some work that had to be done on Monday, so we came home early on Sunday. But one thing that really stuck out to me over the weekend was about my grandparents. You know, when I come home, I always feel this sense of belonging and this sense of legacy with them. My grandparents were just, they had this deep and abiding faith in Christ, and they prayed. They really did pray. They believed in prayer. They believed God answered prayer, and they prayed. I just thought on the way home, I thought, do I have that faith? I mean, I have the faithful one living in me, Christ, but do I have that faith? Because many of my cousins or others came in, they would talk about how Grandpa or Uncle Johnny would come and they'd call him to come and pray for whoever. And he'd come over and he would pray. And one of my cousins said, "Grandpa, you healed me." And he said, "I didn't heal you." And years and years and years after that happened, she still remembers that Grandpa said, "No, it wasn't me who healed you. It was God who healed you. It wasn't me. He just prayed." And we are called to pray. And I do believe some people have the gift of healing. I think my grandpa had that. He had a spiritual gift of healing from the Lord. And I think that's because of faith. He truly believed that God would do what he said he would do, what he could do. So there's a verse in James chapter 5, verses 15. I grew up hearing this verse. I grew up with this in church. I don't see it in church as much today, and it could be just the denomination that I'm in right now, but I don't see it in church much today. It says, "Is anyone among you sick? Let him call for the elders of the church. Let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer offered in faith will restore the one who is sick, and the Lord will raise him up." And the Passion Translation says it this way, and I would call it more of a paraphrase than a translation, but it says, "Are there any believers in your fellowship suffering great hardship or distress? Encourage them to pray. Are there happy, cheerful ones among you? Encourage them to sing out their praises. Are there any sick among you? Then ask the elders of the church to come and pray over the sick and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith will heal the sick, and the Lord will raise them up." If I was sick, I would definitely go and ask the elders of the church to anoint me with oil and pray over me. But I will be honest, I might have to handpick those elders because I want ones that truly believe that the prayer of faith, I want the ones like my grandpa, that the prayer offered in faith will restore the one who is sick. I want the one who really believes to pray over me, to anoint me and pray for me. A few years ago, I was having a lot of sciatic pain in my right leg, and the chiropractor told me, he said, well, Starla, you work using your right all the time. I'm vacuuming, mopping, sweeping. You're constantly using your right arm and your right leg, and it's affecting your right side, the sciatic in your right leg. And he said it wasn't my running. I'm glad to hear that, because I didn't want it to be my running, but it was my work. And I really, really was suffering with my leg bothering me a lot. So one day, I sit down. I actually had communion. I had my own little bread and my own juice, and I had communion with the Lord. And then I anointed my leg with oil, and I prayed over my leg. And healing did not immediately happen. It just didn't. But a few weeks later, we had went to Kentucky. A couple weeks later, it wasn't much long after that. I could probably read it in my journal where I did it. But a couple weeks later, we went to Kentucky, and it was just excruciating the whole weekend. And on the way home, I could just barely sit. It was just miserable. And Nick had told me, he said, I had read somewhere that baking soda helps inflammation. He said, maybe you have inflammation in your body that's causing the problem with the sciatic nerve. So that night when I got home, and I thought, ginger's supposed to be good for that too. So I mixed up this little concoction, about 2/3 cup of water, and a teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of ginger, and I drank it that night. Well, the next morning I got up and I did the same thing. When I made my coffee, I made the ginger drink, and I did that for a couple of weeks. And I realized, I was at a Bible study, and I began to realize, I'm not in the pain that I was in. This is crazy. I'm not experiencing the pain that I had. And I think it went back to where I prayed and I believed and I sought the Lord. And He began to heal my leg. Now, He did it through the ginger and the baking soda also. But I offered that